First, a group of 51 National Guard adjutant generals is urging President Joe Biden to create a separate Space National Guard. Next, physicists have proposed that a large population of small black holes flooded the early universe with particles and radiation, creating their own black hole-powered Big Bang. Finally, SpaceX CEO Elon Musk claims that a recent test flight was a success, but a group of environmental groups have sued the FAA because they disagree. All this and more on today's Space Brief. Hello and welcome to the Undiscovered Country. I'm your host, Bryant A.M. Baker. Today I'll present the top 5 most important things happening in the world of space. Let's get started.
Number 5.
A group of 51 National Guard adjutant generals is urging President Joe Biden to create a separate Space National Guard, overturning a decision by the Office of Management and Budget. The OMB directed the Department of Defense to prepare for the voluntary transfer of National Guard members currently performing space missions to a new space component, which would include both full-time and part-time Guardians. The National Guard Association of the United States argues that OMB's actions are a mistake and that the space component plan will harm Space Force readiness. The Guard leaders claim that OMB's financial calculations are simply wrong. They say that the National Guard Bureau estimates the one-time cost to be $250,000 for heraldry, uniform items, and the transfer of existing manpower and resources from the Air National Guard space units to the new SNG. This cost is dwarfed by the estimated one-time cost of over $644 million to move all A&G space missions to the U.S. Space Force. Advocates of a dedicated Space National Guard have been furiously fighting back, with lawmakers proposing the Space National Guard Establishment Act. The debate about a Space Guard has been fierce since the establishment of the Space Force in 2019, with the Biden administration rejecting the idea due largely to cost concerns. But what do you think about the proposal for a separate Space National Guard? Let me know.
Number 4.
China is planning to develop a satellite constellation called Chuixiao, or Magpie Bridge, for deep space exploration, according to a senior Chinese space expert. The constellation will provide communications, navigation, and remote sensing services in 3 phases. The first phase involves a pilot of the constellation around 2030 to support the 4th phase of China's lunar exploration program and the construction of the International Lunar Research Station. The second phase, around 2040, will see the construction of a basic constellation to provide services for manned lunar exploration and deep space exploration for planets such as Mars and Venus. While the third phase, expected around 2050, will expand the constellation's capabilities to include services for exploring Mars, Venus, giant planets, and the edge of the solar system. As a part of the constellation, Chuixiao-2, a relay satellite for communications between the far side of the Moon and Earth, is planned to be launched in 2024. The satellite constellation is an essential step towards China's goal of becoming a major space power. It will enable the country to conduct long-term, large-scale exploration missions, explore and utilize space resources, and enhance China's space communication capabilities. But what do you think about China's plan to develop a satellite constellation for deep space exploration?
Number 3.
Physicists have proposed that a large population of small black holes flooded the early universe with particles and radiation, creating their own black hole-powered Big Bang. The early universe was chaotic and energetic, especially after inflation, the event that triggered an incredible expansion, ballooning our universe to tremendous sizes in less than a second. the universe might have become so violent that random pockets of space-time could have spontaneously reached critical thresholds in density and size, thereby triggering the formation of primordial black holes that flooded the universe. A team of physicists has examined how these smaller black holes might behave and how we might detect them. These small black holes could have delayed the evolution of the universe by emitting Hawking radiation, which transformed their mass into radiation. These black holes could have prevented the typical evolution of the universe, thereby keeping the density constant in the first few minutes after the Big Bang. The evaporation of these primordial black holes might have been responsible for filling the universe with dark matter or dark energy, or they might have triggered the process of baryogenesis, forcing the universe to have more matter than antimatter. Primordial black holes could have flooded the universe with a unique signature of gravitational waves, which are ripples in spacetime. Future space-based detectors, like the Laser Interferometer space antenna, could detect these gravitational waves.
Number 2.
SpaceX recently conducted a test flight of its Starship rocket, which ended in a large explosion that was broadcasted worldwide. Despite this, SpaceX CEO Elon Musk claims that the test flight was still a success in relation to SpaceX's aims with the mission. However, during a recent Twitter Space conversation, Musk revealed several issues that occurred during the launch. The automated self-destruct feature didn't work immediately, and 3 of the rocket's 33 engines didn't participate in the launch thrust, which caused the spacecraft to lean during the ascent. One engine also had a fault that damaged other engines, and the engines lost their ability to control the direction of the launch vehicle, resulting in spinning. The FAA has grounded Starship following the mishap, and it's clear that the issues will need to be addressed before future launches. But despite this, Musk is still optimistic about the project's future and believes that SpaceX will be ready to fly again in a couple of months. He's confident that Starship will reach orbit in 2023. It's clear that this recent development with SpaceX highlights the challenges of space exploration and the importance of rigorous testing. While it's admirable that Musk remains optimistic, it's essential that SpaceX takes the necessary steps to ensure the safety of their rockets and any future crew. It will be interesting to see how SpaceX addresses the issues that occurred during the test flight, and whether they will be able to achieve their goals within the promised timeline.
Number 1.
Several environmental groups have filed a lawsuit against the Federal Aviation Administration, alleging that the agency improperly carried out an environmental review of SpaceX Starship launches from Boca Chica, Texas. The suit seeks to revoke the FAA's launch license for Starship launches and declare that the environmental review conducted violated the National Environmental Policy Act. The lawsuit argues that the FAA failed to fully assess the impacts on the environment from launches, as well as launch failures, by the Starship and Super Heavy vehicle. The groups cited the April 20th first integrated launch of that vehicle, which ended in a fiery explosion of the rocket just after liftoff. The lawsuit also argues that the FAA did not adequately examine alternatives to launching from Boca Chica, such as launching from the Kennedy Space Center. The lawsuit includes organizations such as the American Bird Conservancy, Surfrider Foundation, Save RGV, and the Carrizo Comec Rudo Nation of Texas. The FAA and its acting administrator, Billy Nolan, are listed as defendants, but not SpaceX. The importance of this lawsuit lies in the potential environmental impact of SpaceX's Starship rocket launches, which the environmental groups claim have not been properly assessed by the FAA. The lawsuit argues that the FAA failed to take into account extended closures of the highway that leads to both the Starbase site and the neighboring public beach, which the groups argue is counter to Texas state laws that guarantee free access to such beaches. The groups seek to hold the FAA accountable for failing to properly regulate the launch site, which is close to protected habitats and a state park. But what are your thoughts on the impact of space exploration on the Earth and the need to protect habitats for future generations? Thank you for joining me. Links to all the stories are in the description. The world of space law, policy, and business is changing every day. Keep ahead of the most important things happening by watching the other recent episodes that I put together for you. I would love to hear your thoughts on everything I talked about here today. If you feel like this information has been helpful for you, please consider giving it a like or a rating and subscribing and following the content. I'm honored to be a part of this community of citizens in this undiscovered country of ours, and I'll see you again next time.